So, peaks, valleys, seamounts, and trenches. I want you to imagine some of these images. Imagine places with exotic names. Names like Los Nevados, which essentially means the snowy ones, or the snowy place, or place of snowy peaks. Imagine places like Turimiquiri, which is essentially a mountain range, very beautiful place with an archipelago where you can dive. Lots of beautiful seamounts. Imagine a Camino Real. Imagine a Camino Real being the place where the conquistadores, the conquerors of the Americas, in South America, plowed through mountains, valleys, to discover or colonize that portion of the world. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, Melissa, Rich, and Sean. I'm framing, actually, a story about my honeymoon. A honeymoon, you say? Yes, a honeymoon. Let me tell you why. My wife actually thought it was interesting when I told her the story about my first time going to Los Nevados. By the way, no Camino Real involved on that first trip. And you'll find out why soon. She thought it was interesting that I had decided to hike all by myself, very little preparation, almost zero logistics, to this place that could easily be reached first by cable car. Actually, once upon a time, it held the title of the world's tallest cable car, going up 15,000 feet into the Andes. We're talking perpetual snow, we're talking looking down on the clouds. Can you see all those images? She thought it was interesting. Interesting enough that when we decided to get married, and I said, let's find a nice, interesting, and adventurous place. Would you like to go there? Based on the fact that she thought it was a nicer story I had told. She said, yes, let's go. So we planned for it. It was just half a day, just an afternoon, down the cable car to the other side of the mountain. No biggie, right? 1 week before we get married, cable car goes down. It had been running for almost half a century, literally millions of tourists, and the cables gave way. This beautiful place that had before been just a place to visit and watch had suddenly become a gravesite, hallowed ground. Students perished. But we said, fine. The trip, though, became a 2-day trip up the Andes on a pack of mules. How many of you would have given up right there and then? I thought so. But she didn't. When the gentleman that was running the bed and breakfast at Los Nevados said, don't worry, it's only a couple of days. You guys stay overnight. That's also my place. You'll see the Camino Real, which looks very interesting by now. We said, okay. And she was just jumping with joy. Yes, okay. As usual, she was right. She's been right for over 2 decades now. Imagine sitting in this old town square at the base of the mountain, near, not at the capital, but near the capital. So this was the town where we started by itself was picturesque. Being picked up at about 3 a.m., dark. Stopping at the end of this road, mountain. Mules, this Sherpa guy named an arriero waiting for us, loading up one of the mules, and starting the climb at dawn. Remember when I told you that the cable car had been running for over 50 years? Well, guess what? That Camino Real, much like in those TV shows where you see how vegetation just takes over, we lost the arriero a few times. We couldn't see him. The ferns, I'm talking gigantic ferns, we were going through the forest, literally, being swatted left and right. And I'm like, what is this? And where's the guy? We couldn't see him. But he brought the mules down, he brought the mules back up. And I personally think that was by itself a memorable moment. Just going through something that hadn't been touched in half a century. He wasn't even hitting it with a machete. He was just going through it. He knew where it was. And then finally we found it clear. We spent a week there. That was a memorable moment at the beginning. I'm going to tell you about two more. The second one starts on day 2 of the climb. And we are on the mule, right? An hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. You know how that saddle starts to feel, especially if you're not an experienced horse person. If you're not into equestrians, you haven't ridden a horse in a long time, it feels uncomfortable. So the mule felt that my mule was going slow, but lo and behold, her mule was galloping up the mountain. Mind you, we had known each other less than 6 months by the time we got married. Sometimes we make decisions that way. Anyway, by the time we finally stopped, and I'm like, oh, why was your mule galloping? She turns around and says, oh, hadn't I told you? I used to belong to this equestrian club, and we all used to go ranches and all that. I'm almost an Amazon. Well, that's what I thought in my head. Well, I'm going to tell you, 22 years later, she still surprises me. The last surprise was about fencing. Then the final image I want to give you is, the town is deserted, by the way. Since the cable car went down, everybody in town went down. They left the place. It was eerie, okay? Again, a hamlet, 10,000 feet, on the other side of the range, to ourselves. So we're like, okay, we're here. We have 5 days left. What do we do? So the lady that was feeding us, she says, oh, go to Lorenzo's mill. Where's Lorenzo's mill? You know how it goes in the country? Oh, just go that way an hour. Here we are walking an hour. By the way, we went past a few intersections, like, it must be this way. She said this way. An hour and a half. And you're like, okay. We don't see anything. We don't see Lorenzo's mill. I mean, we saw some breathtaking locations, ravines, torrents. I'm sure I saw a condor screeching overhead, and always just the mountains losing themselves into the clouds. And I'm talking to her, and we're like in this conversation, kind of walking, and all of a sudden, I just jump. Ah! Imagine this ageless man quietly stepping out of the mist on the path a few feet away. Oh, I thought it was a ghost. We thought the place was deserted. Well, guess what? In such a place, with so much distance, with so much room, that was Lorenzo. Nicest gentleman. Of course, he first quieted me down. Then he quieted her down because she was just cracking up. He took us to the meal. What can I tell you? 3 images, 3 moments on a beautiful adventure, honeymoon. Again, next time you hear Los Nevados, next time you hear Camino Real, or next time you see a mule on TV, please have a laugh with me. Thank you.